Welcome back to another edition of what is this called? Black Guys on White Movies? Yes, that is the title.
That is the title.
That's it. I hope.
I am one of your hosts, Aaron Covington.
And I am the other host, Aman Adumer.
And guest co-host, Bruno Harris.
And this week we're looking at the movie Fargo by the Coen brothers with a great cast. Of course, William H. Macy and who else was in this cast? Francis McDormand,
Steve Buscemi. Yep.
John Carroll Lynch, Peter Stormare. Great cast.
Peter Stormare, yeah. I was trying to think of his name.
And read a synopsis and then do the Black Movie of the Week. Synopsis for Fargo. Minnesota car salesman Jerry Lundegaard's inept crime falls apart due to his and his henchmen's bungling and the persistent police work of the quite pregnant Marge Gunderson.
Yeah, that's spot on.
Yeah, it's interesting because this movie isn't really like a premise-based movie. It's quote unquote based on a true story, but I think there's a lot of license with that and what that means in this movie. But that synopsis does it Jerry Lundegaard does have his inept crime. It was a bad, stupid, bad idea of a crime. The henchmen's bungling for sure. They were not good henchmen
at all.
And Marge is kind of just tracking him down, just slowly Pepe Le Pewing him down to resistance.
For sure, for sure.
Yeah, and the synopsis makes it sound like a straight comedy. Like very pregnant Marge, like this. Sounds like a
right.
It just sounds like it'd be silly.
I think that's an interesting thing that you bring up, because that brings me a question for you guys, which we can get into after Black Movie of the Week. But like, is this a comedy? Because it's definitely billed as one. It was at the time. Even when I looked it up on Wikipedia earlier, it's still kind of the word comedy is thrown in there. Like, there's humorous moments, but is it a comedy?
Yeah. They call it a black comedy. 1996 black comedy.
Right.
Wow.
It's like,
and that brings up a lot of questions about the Coen brothers, what they're allowed to do and kind of what they created in their careers. Kind of their own genre. And we'll talk about what that is and who's allowed to do that.
Yeah,
As
definitely.
we white movies here, they get a lot of leeway. Black Movie of the Week, I went with Devil in a Blue Dress, which is a great detective story from 1995. So I just followed the crime piece of it, really. And Devil in a Blue Dress came to mind, which stars, of course, Denzel Washington and Don Cheadle. Pretty sure they're only role together, but magic on screen.
A crime.
And
I mean,
truly,
there's like 30 other books in that series, that Easy Rawlins mystery series. So let's get those two guys back together.
That'd be a dream.
We need to get our legends together a little more often. There's no role for any other black legends in Equalizer. Equalizer 3 could have had somebody pop in a little 10. Halle Berry was in John Wick 3 for like 10 minutes.
Right.
Couldn't get somebody in Equalizer 3 for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Actually, maybe there is. Actually, I haven't seen Equalizer 3 yet. So
yeah. Fair enough.
Somebody come and correct me and be like, Morgan Freeman shows up.
And he kicks so much ass.
But yeah, Devil in a Blue Dress was based on the Easy Rawlins character created by the great author Walter Mosley. And really, this was the only Walter Mosley Easy Rawlins book that's made into a movie.
I think so, which is also kind of wild.
Yeah, even if they did one now and it wasn't obviously Denzel, it was a younger black actor. It's something that, why is this not a series? Why is this not a series? To rival like Bosch, or something.
Yeah, for sure.
We
should have had a number of them by now.
Why not? So yeah, check out Devil in a Blue Dress. Really good detective movie set in like the late 1940s, 1950s.
Yeah, 1940s.
Okay.
Um, LA, Denzel, young Denzel, 1995 Denzel,
Oh yeah.
worth a watch. Now back to Fargo. So yeah, let's talk about
Fargo.
Fargo. A
If it, you got to do the accent every time you say it.
Yeah, you do got to do the accent.
It's right
Fargo,
away.
Fargo.
Between this and Bobby's World, like those are the two things in the '90s that like immortalized that accent. Like Bobby's mom and Bobby's World had that "don't you know" sort of deal.
Don't you
Mm.
know? Oh, it's almost like when you hear like Koreans talk, and they're like, or or a lot of Asian languages, 'cause they use a lot of like they go a lot of like non-word phrases that you
Right,
say
like
a lot.
right, like even in English, you have like a and it's like a
Sure,
lot of
sure.
other languages have like way more different versions of that sort of
Yeah.
non-verbal thing.
And they're like
Right.
really part of language. They'll be like, ooh, and different things. And
Hmm.
this is like, oh, don't you know? They almost use
Yeah.
it inflections in a very interesting way.
And like even not just inflections, but like sayings. Like there's so much within this that's like built up in like those little inflections or like sayings and like even there's a part towards the end where like instead of saying goodbye, a guy just looks up in the sky and says like, "Oh, looks like it's gonna come down heavy tomorrow," and like the other dude automatically responds and does the same thing. And there's like an incredible like regional shorthand in this movie.
Yeah. Yeah. This is a film that transports you to a place that's real but feels like a fantastical place because of that, the regional shorthand and the way people talk and this landscapes if you're not from the Midwest.
Right.
um, I feel like to be someone who's not from the United States and watch this movie and go, oh, this exists as well, huh,
Uh,
it's
mhm.
fascinating.
100%. Like,
It's interesting. Oh my bad.
go ahead.
I was just gonna say it's interesting because like they've got like a pretty heavy like I think like Scandinavian immigrant population up there, at least like back in the 1800s or whatever. Because I was watching when they came out with the show Fargo. Like
Yeah.
Mm.
I was watching it at the time, and I remember my brother-in-law happened to be around, and I just said "oofta," like because I had been watching the show, and I like dropped something, was like "oofta," and like he like looked at me for a second, and like, and then I realized like he's Norwegian, like they actually say "oofta," they don't, you know what I mean?
Right, right.
And so I was like, oh, I didn't even know that was like a real thing. I thought that was just a Fargoism or whatever.
Yeah. He was
Wow.
like, who are you?
He
Where are
was
you
like, wait a
from?
minute, you
You work for the government? He was like, who do you think you are, man? Oof, these. Uh, it makes me think of so like people have a perception of Los Angeles, for example, like to be like very specific, like, oh, LA and Valley people and LA is so fake. And then it's like LA is a huge metropolitan city. Most of
Hmm.
LA is way more urban and way more, I guess, counter to the perception, way more real than people realize. Like Hollywood is a small stretch of land. Beverly Hills is a small community. Then there's Central LA and South Central and East LA
Hmm.
like Silver Lake area. Like these are just like working class
Yeah.
people. LA is mostly working class, middle and lower class people. And
Mhm.
then you have, and of course, rich people, they siphon themselves off. So like Malibu is not close
Hmm.
Right.
to stuff, you know what I mean? And even Santa Monica, which has a mix, but like this is where the people live in Santa Monica, like that are like
Hmm.
that. And then there's like the rest of Santa Monica, which is even that part of LA can be kind of dangerous. So when I think
Yeah.
of Fargo, it's like, oh, America, this is what America is. Bright lights. It's like, nah, it's mostly cornfields and like long, lonely drives on flat land and
Hmm. Hmm.
people with regional dialects and little diners. And all three of us are basically from the Midwest or
Yeah.
places like this. Vermont's from
Colorado.
Colorado.
Hmm.
I'm from Northwest Indiana. Bernard's from Cleveland, Ohio. Like we're from the Midwest,
For
Hmm.
sure.
know.
For sure.
Mhm.
So this movie really, I think, if you're from those areas, there's a quicker buy-in. Like Amon said, it's
Yeah,
so exotic, but for us, it's like actually, I may not have lived with that accent, but I know a Marge Gunderson. You know what I mean?
one
For
hundred
sure.
percent, 100%.
100%.
Yeah,
100%.
I know those roads. I know what it's like to drive during the snow. I know it like I know that feeling of being like, all right, a ton of used car shops, used car sales, and things like that. Uh,
Yeah,
The
even like
desperation that he felt when it was like he couldn't get the money. It's like there's a certain Midwest desperation that is
oof.
just different because it just seems like there's nothing. You have one, like the Eminem song we did a couple. You have one shot. Like
mhm,
Mhm,
everything can feel like you only have one shot
mhm.
in a way in the Midwest.
Yeah.
for sure. For sure. Even like uh in the beginning when he goes to Fargo in order to like meet the two kidnappers or whatever, and we'll get into all that, but like that bar that he goes to meet them at, which is like, I don't know, the King of Clubs, I think it was called, or something like that. It's
Mhm.
like, I don't care if it's in, inside the city, Cleveland, Ohio. I don't care if it's like somewhere out in like maybe one of the rural, you and I, Aaron, just the other day, we're talking about like in the Midwest. You don't drive far to get really into some real rural shit. Like it doesn't like
Yeah,
you have an understanding of it. So even like one of the rural small towns, like we've all seen that kind of beat down club bar before, like that exact
Yeah.
same like that's why when you see it on screen, you kind of know exactly what it is.
yeah,
You
Yeah,
know,
100%. It's usually across the street from a beat up liquor store as well.
for sure, for
for
sure.
sure.
People play pool in that bar, but do not play pool with those folks. I'm telling you.
And I don't know where these criminals were from. It's the Steve Buscemi and Peter Stormare
Yeah.
character, but to be in the in a cold Midwest town that's not Chicago,
Mhm.
and to be like, I'm losing my mind because there's nothing to do. 100% accurate. You got to go, especially in '96 when it was even harder to like find things to do or to connect with people. There's no Tinder or anything. Not getting dates.
Right.
You got
Right.
to go with a book and some VHS. You have to go with a plan to keep yourself entertained. You got to have a way. And they were
Mhm.
had a house out in the woods. Like you got to be chopping wood, or you got to like shoveling snow, or just like being by yourself, or have a pipe that you like to
That's why he was
smoke
so
at
pissed
night.
off about that TV. That's why he's so pissed off about that TV not working. Because
Bro,
Yeah.
it,
96, you ain't got shit else going on out there.
And nobody's coming out to fix it either. Like you don't have the number for someone to come out. It's too cold for someone to come out.
You
ain't
seen
no
people were
fixing.
still using payphones, man. Like that was a pre-internet or not a pre-mobile phone internet age, man.
Right.
Yeah, like
Right.
say there's nothing to do is doesn't quite capture it because there's also this permeating feeling of nothingness around you.
Hmm.
It's one thing to have nothing to do when you're around people. Like even if you just have a big family in a small town, it's like there's nothing to do, but there's other people around. But there's nothing else around.
Yeah.
Oof.
So you have nothing to do, and there is nothing.
Right.
You know,
And
jail
mhm.
would be a welcome repast for those guys in that environment. There'd be other prisoners around. For the criminals, like there is
Mhm.
nothing to do. You really have to be like, I'm out here on my Hemingway journaling.
Yeah. Yeah. Truly. And it shows in the relationship that, well, one that Steve Buscemi and the Peter Stromey character have,
Yeah.
where the Peter guy's like, I'm fine on my own. I'm not talking to you.
Yeah.
And Buscemi's losing his mind because he needs someone to talk to.
Oh yeah.
So he
And
keeps like getting with those escorts, and even they don't want to talk to him. So it's like, it's the whole thing.
yeah, it is what a weird character. But that really does show in that he's like really just looking for man, so many people in this movie are like really just looking for like some sort of weird human connection that that's just out of reach.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I never read that in this movie
Same.
necessarily until now, but it's definitely there. It's definitely a big part. And even with Marge, it's like her connection with her husband, and then she meets this guy from high school. And it was just like she wasn't trying to do anything with this guy. It was like a
Mm-hmm.
reconnection with somebody that she knew.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That was exciting for her, a change of pace. And these are the things that like kept her grounded. And William H. Macy's character was just a miserable guy, I guess. Like he
Yeah.
he didn't. I don't even
Yeah.
know why. Well, let's get back into that. We'll do the plot here in a little bit. Let's talk about Joel and Ethan Coen just for a couple minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously very like accomplished, celebrated filmmakers, won a number of awards, a number of classic films, truly classic films. Without going through the list, but I'm sure filmmakers know a Coen Brother movie or two, and it's worth checking out their catalog. If you are a filmmaker, if you just love film, it's worth beginning to end. But what they have done, I think, it even from the beginning of their careers, created their own genre, really, of film.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think there have been attempts to duplicate, but nothing really stands out. But they make films, they use even a different storytelling language than other filmmakers. Like a lot of their films, the third act is like not a typical third act, where like they'll have
Mm-hmm.
the big climax scene way early, and then you're in the last 30 minutes trying to figure out what's going on. They really
Mm-hmm.
play with the language of storytelling. And they also have a very unique tone that runs through all their films. Like Bernard was saying at the beginning, is this a comedy? Is this a drama? Black comedy, what does that mean? Because there's like a crime and murder in it, I guess that makes it black, but that doesn't really speak to the specific tone and how they have actors act. You have to act in a Coen Brothers manner to be in a Coen
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Brothers film.
True.
And I do think there is a question of who is allowed to do that. I think the
Mm-hmm.
Coen Brothers have done it. I think Wes Anderson's another filmmaker that's like very specific. Even if you go on a Wes Anderson film, you got to like
Mm-hmm.
mentally get in the Wes Anderson mode to act in it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think it's just very interesting and something to pay attention to.
Truly. And if I could jump in, it's like the so well, actually I didn't mention this to you guys before at all, but I was listening to this podcast. It's called Team Deacons. Roger
Mm.
Deakins and his daughter have a podcast, um, or his family member has a podcast where they interview filmmakers, and they interviewed Joel Cohen on one of the podcasts, and he spoke because they've worked together so long. Roger Deakins being the DP, they've worked together on so many films. The candidness, I've never seen Joel Cohen speak for more than like 15 seconds, but in this, he was speaking for like 2 hours,
Yeah.
and he talked about how important it was for he and his brother to have control over their movies by keeping budgets low and not letting anyone give them feedback and notes. Uh, and that's how they've like kind of run their career. And the only way they can get these huge people is because they know, oh, I'm going to be in a Coen Brothers movie, and
Yeah,
they've created a brand. So now a big actor can come in and not get paid much,
Mm.
similar to Wes Anderson.
I really like that part of them understanding that having the control of the movie keeps the budget low, because that I could see that really being true, and how that can spiral out of control for a lot of movies.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you are in charge of, you're the director of a movie, if you say one thing, even flippantly, even as a joke, people start moving. They start acting on that. This happens
Mm.
in organizations too, just the boss. And sometimes you don't want people to act on it. But once they start acting, the ticker continues to tick.
Right.
All these things cost money, and all of a sudden, something small or that could have been done really cheap You know,
Mhm.
when other people are planning it, they're trying to cover their tracks and do things in the most like way that's not going to get them in trouble. So there's a lot of they implement a lot of checks and balances. But if you're
Right.
in control and you just really have the final say, or you can establish it so people don't act unless you explicitly tell them to, you can find ways to
Mhm.
do things that are usually cheaper or more efficient. And I've seen this on sets that I've been on, and definitely short films that I've done, and 100% even on TV shows where things are kind of set. It's like, but we're doing this in the most time consuming way possible. You know,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
more time we take, the more money we're wasting.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. The less decisive the leaders are, the more money it's going to cost. And
Exactly.
it's
I think that's interesting. I think it's interesting because, like, you can see it, like you said, and guys like Wes Anderson. But to, I guess if we're gonna bring it back, I think you can also see it with like maybe black filmmakers, like Spike Lee or whatever. That's kind of the first one that comes to mind, but I'm sure there must be some others. Any you guys can think of who maybe have maintained that sort of control
oh,
by
control over the projects as like a black filmmaker.
keeping budgets low. I can also think of Robert Rodriguez, different realm, but
Mhm.
still. And
Mhm.
also, like, if you go to a Robert Rodriguez or Spike Lee movie, you're gonna be acting in a Rodriguez or Lee sort of way.
True.
Yeah.
True. Yeah, that's so
Um,
true.
not too many black filmmakers specifically have been afforded this opportunity, and there's like a lot of reasons why I think, but I think broader like um, just looking at minorities. Who did the first Incredible Hulk movie?
Oh,
Ang Lee
Ang
Ang Lee for
Mhm.
sure,
Mhm.
definitely, has his own thing. Even
for
something like
sure.
Studio Ghibli,
Oh, for
right?
sure,
Mhm.
its own thing.
I mean, that's
Yeah.
animation, so it's more controlled anyway. But that's like creator controlled. Guillermo
Right.
del Toro, you know,
For
Greta
sure,
Gerwig is there now. Like, yo, Barbie, she put herself on a like, yo. But even
Mhm.
before,
Yeah.
she was kind of doing a mumblecore thing and like some very specific kind of comedy. She had kind of established her own language.
for sure.
Mhm. Mhm.
And maybe some of these others aren't even as specific as Wes Anderson or Joel Ether Cohen, who also have like distinct visual languages and everything. They have a whole mythos around them because they've been doing it for so long. But
Mhm.
I do think that if you're black, it's hard to sell that, or it's hard for execs to buy
Right.
that you're going to be that specific or tell a story that specifically, and that's not even what they're looking for in this industry right now. The
Mhm.
black art tour. I think that's scary to the mainstream.
Yeah.
Scarier now maybe than it was even in the '90s.
I think you
Yeah.
have, maybe like Boots Riley, and I'm sure it's a couple other people, but
Oh, that's great.
Boots is
Yep.
yeah, Boots is establishing his thing for sure.
for
Mhm.
sure. But like you said, it's also like, and this is nothing against Boots or any of those people, but like there are, to a certain extent, from what you're talking about, from like the industry level or the larger corporate level, they're only looking for so many of those sort of voices, right?
Mhm.
Need some to maintain like a reality, and then you're not financing everybody, all the other Boots Rileys that might be out there, or anybody else, not to keep throwing that person's name out there.
It
Ye-
does kind of feel like, oh, and honestly, Tyler Perry's in there. If you're doing a Tyler Perry project,
For
you're doing
sure.
a Tyler Perry project, and he's at such a huge level of it that it's completely its own thing. He didn't answer anybody at this point. But I think my main point on this is that it's something that's actively looked for with young white male filmmakers,
Mhm.
and it's not something that's actively looked for really with anybody else.
Mhm.
And then not only is it actively looked for, but it can be so radically different too. I think if they are looking for it, say like an Asian filmmaker, it's kind of still something specific they're looking for. But when it's like a white male, they're like, "What do you got? Show us. You tell me what you do," and then that can be a thing. Or a guy can do that low budget first feature, and all of a sudden they're talking about him in a conversation with like the Coen brothers, and it's like, dang, that was a big jump from one movie to thinking this guy is running things like the Coen Brothers, you know.
Yeah.
It like strikes me as similar to actors, like in the sense of like, there's a lot of there's not a ton of space, but there's space for like, white actors who kind of have maybe more an average look, right? Most actors are at least in some way handsome or attractive, but like a more average look. But it's like when you get to like black actors, I mean, they almost always have to be stunning, right? You look to
Especially now,
Hispanic
it's become
or
a thing. Yeah.
for sure Asian actors, right? Like almost any
Mhm.
male Asian actor that you see in movies 9 times out of 10, if it's a mainstream movie, it's going to be like the jock guy who's showing off washboard abs. Like there's not a lot of space for like the short, nerdy Asian guy, unless it's like maybe Spider-Man Homecoming, where they were specifically looking for that
Yeah.
actor and that thing.
There's still a
Right.
little space for like the sidekicks, but
Right.
even a
Right.
lot of times the sidekicks now are like dashing. It's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
but that's another interesting thing about this movie, and you know, a lot of '90s movies we do is how different everybody looks. It's really like
Yes.
Hollywood and acting that's become so narrow and homogenized, where everybody got to be like everybody takes so much better care of themselves now. Everything it's like everybody's dashing. People
Hmm.
had funny faces in the '90s,
Mhm.
and a lot of those actors are still relevant or even stars or whatever. Francis McDormand just won an Oscar like 4 years ago. William H.
Hmm.
Macy is still, on top of the game. Really, all these, main people from this movie. So the funny faces still come from people from the '90s, and everybody knew it was like so attractive. Now it's kind of off-putting in a way. I've been talking to people about this. It's like where does who's the next Steve Buscemi? Is there another like person that looks
Right.
like that?
Right.
They kept saying in this movie like he's kind of funny looking, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
They were like, in what way? He's just a general way, kind of funny looking.
Right.
Yeah. It feels like we get our normal looking people, we import them from England, where they have
Right.
opportunities to be in shows and things, and then they're like, oh my goodness, that regular looking man can act his ass off. Let's put him in something in America.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Whereas like where the regular human beings get a chance to pop off in the United States.
I'm making a call for just straight up ugly, ugly actors. Traditionally ugly. I'm not casting judgment on anybody, but let's find some people that we traditionally would call ugly.
Well, they
I
call
bet
them
they could be
character
huge
actors.
stars. I bet they could be a huge star. Or just like funny looking people. I want
Yeah.
all funny looking people from now on in
Yeah.
modern movies. I
I
want the
feel like
next whatever man to be insane looking.
it's funny. I feel like another place that Hollywood definitely kind of cherry picks those more normal looking actors is from Broadway, right? Like people who just are
Mm,
Yeah.
like ungodly talented, right? And
yes.
and yeah, it is interesting how like many people who come up out of like the studio system, even though it's not the same sort of studio system it was when people use that term, but kind of the Hollywood studio system are very like breathtakingly dashing, but also in a way it's very plain because it's all very similar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um,
Mm.
back to the movie. I thought of something else, but I'm gonna let it go here to kind of get back on track. Um, so the movie is this movie specifically, Fargo, kind of cover the Coen Brothers, and we'll talk about it more specifically. But this is a funny, not funny of the comedy, but like the crime story here is funny in the
Mm.
sense of how odd it is. I never really could lock down why, how much money he needed and why he needed the money. Did you guys catch that in a
Not
like specifically? Because
no,
it's
I
not
not
thought it
that
was
important.
I thought it was to buy into that deal that he took to.
yeah, yeah. He wanted to buy into a deal. I don't know how much money he needed though. Not sure if they uh he brought the deal to his father-in-law who has all the money, and they were just going to steal it from him instead of have him be the primary. have a finder's fee instead of give him ownership of it.
So he
And
could
was it
kind of create his own,
his own path?
yeah, his own path in life. Because
Right.
he was pretty much kind of a loser.
Truly.
Right.
Because was that his father-in-law's dealership he worked for?
Yeah, he
Yeah.
worked for his father-in-law's dealership. He wasn't a great car salesman. Everybody was pissed at him that he tried to sell a car to. He was like, "You got to get that true coat." He was like, "Man, I don't want no sealant on a car." He's like, "Yeah, but that true coat." The guy was getting the first guy he talked to was like, "You screwed me, Jerry. I didn't want the true coat."
You're a fucking liar. Like, no, he's like, you know.
I can take $100 off. He was like, "Man, if you give me that true coat, I'm coming back, locked and loaded." Like, yo, don't give me that true coat. So he needs to get this money, and he decides the best way to do it is to hire these criminals from out of state to kidnap his wife, hold her for ransom to get his father-in-law to pay it. But somehow he thought he could set himself up as a middleman for all of this. So when the father-in-law paid it, he would get a cut and then give the two criminals $80,000 apparently, their cut.
Yeah.
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 Which I've seen more and more, not kidnap plots, but like people getting caught trying to pay someone to kill their partner. And it ends up being a cop and they get arrested. As you know, I would say that that's never a plot in real life. That's a good idea to hire someone to do something.
It's
I'm going out on a limb here, but I'm gonna say, just don't do that. Don't do that.
It seems like they're almost always police officers or some facsimile.
Yeah. And then the plan goes haywire immediately. There's two criminals, Carl and Gayer. Hard for me to pronounce that. Gayer. They go to kidnap her, and she's already acting like as soon as she sees him, she freaks out. This is where like a lot of like the physical comedy in the film is her reaction to them breaking into her house, and she gets wrapped up in a shower curtain, falls down the stairs. But they got her in the car finally, and they're driving. The car breaks down, and then somebody sees them on the side. Wait, no, they got pulled over by the cops. That's what
They got pulled
happened,
over by
right?
the cops. Yes. Yes.
They
Yes.
get pulled over by the cop. The cop comes. He's like, "Where you going?" You know, in the accent. Immediately it goes wrong. Steve Buscemi tries to bribe him. That doesn't work. The other guy kills the cop. Things are bad right there. It's pretty much over at that point.
Yeah.
Then a car drives by with like two teens in it, and he's like, "We can't have any witnesses." So he chases them down on the highway and kills the two kids. So before they even could alert Jerry that they have the kidnapping accomplished, they've killed three people.
Yeah.
It was over. It was over at that point. Like for the whole, and this is a town, and it's called Brainerd in Minnesota, a really small town that does not have murders.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
It's so small and so quiet and so away from everything that there's almost no point to committing crime there. There's no come up in Brainerd, Minnesota, you know?
Right.
No.
And then from there, once Jerry finds out, he's just panicking. And then we kind of just following him for half the movie, panicking, trying to figure out like if he can still get the money. He's still trying to make it work, but it's already falling apart. Steve Buscemi's character is just trying to get some action because he's bored. And then we meet Marge, Frances McDormand's character, who's a cop in Brainerd, who's charged with investigating these murders, and she's also like 7 months pregnant. And all she does is just dutifully just follows the basic on the face clues. Like the murder happens and she goes to the nearest bar and she's like, "Did you see two guys?" And they're like, "Yeah, there were two guys here. Yeah, for sure. Don't you know?" She's like, "Well, what do you know about them?" And they're like, "Well, they were weird guys." And then somebody had seen the car, so they traced the car to the dealership, and she talks to William H. Mason. He's freaking out, and she's like, did you have the car? He's like, no. And at first she's like, well, okay then. I'll be seeing you.
Yeah, straight up. Okay, I guess this is done. Yes.
Yeah, it is interesting. Like I feel like I remember her character being touted as, just a really good detective in this movie, and she is, but she's that. She's a good detective. She's literally just doing her job, right? Like
Yeah.
she's not Sherlock Holmes. She's just literally like
Right.
following up on questions, while so everybody else throughout the movie is in some way bumbling.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
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 She's
Truly.
like a basic level of competence.
Yeah. Yeah. She looks like a genius, like you're saying, because everyone else is an idiot. Like the dealer plates, the other cop is just like, it was a plate that said DLR, so I put an APB out for any plates with DLR, and it
Right.
starts right away. I don't agree with your police work there, Lou.
Yeah.
I think that those aren't real license plates; those are dealer plates.
I
Like,
saw
oh,
a quote
geez.
recently that was like how crazy it is that the myth of, and we kind of talked about this before, the myth of serial killers being these geniuses,
Right.
when really it's just highlights how bad a lot of police are, the
Mm-hmm.
ineptitude of police work. Not that those kinds of people are geniuses. And this
Right.
movie
Yeah.
kind of also, displays that. It's like things go wrong and people commit crimes and it's just kind of silly. And if you
Mm-hmm.
don't give the benefit of the doubt and just kind of chase it down,
Yeah.
you could solve a crime or two.
That's so
Yeah.
true.
It's interesting how, they're dealing with some pretty major crimes in this, in this movie, right? Like murder, conspiracy to commit murder. Like they're dealing with some heavy things. But it does do a good job of like showing how petty all of crime is, even like the big
Yeah.
crime.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it begs a question as you get through this movie, because things just continue to go bad for everybody on the crime side. Even the father-in-law. So they kidnapped the lady, her dad, who's really like a take charge, like it seems like a millionaire business owner. He owns a car dealership, he owns other businesses, and he really cuckolds Jerry in a way. He's like
Yeah.
the patriarch of the family. And Jerry's like, "Oh, I'll hand the money." And he's like, "No, Jerry, I'm gonna take charge of this. You're an idiot."
Yeah.
And he
Yeah.
goes to like give the guys the money to get his daughter back, and ends up getting shot and getting killed. But he's no chump. He also brought a little gun, so he shoots Steve Buscemi in the mouth.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
Buscemi goes to like he takes a suitcase from him when he's dead, goes back to the hideout, and he's like, "All right, we're done. I got the money."
Well, before the
And then
hideout,
he ends up getting killed. Oh, go ahead.
before he goes to the hideout, he sees how much money there is, pulls to the side of the road, stacks up some money, steals it,
Buries it.
doesn't give
Yeah,
it to his partner, and buries it in the snow for him to
Right.
find
Because
later.
they're supposed to get, well, originally they're supposed to get 40,000, right? He
right.
doubles it on
Right.
he doubles it
That's
on Jerry because three people are dead and he's very
Yeah,
talkative about his crimes. Three people are dead
truly.
and he wants to double it to 80,000. But what he didn't know was that Jerry was always trying to extort, or it seems to me that he was always trying to extort $1 million from his father-in-law.
from his father-in-law. Yeah,
So when he opens that
Mm-hmm.
bag up, there's way more than $80,000 in there.
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so he
That's a good point.
buries it, then goes to his partner. Like, in really, if you're gonna cheat your partner, he could just leave at that point. Just leave,
Yeah.
or just like
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
go there, throw the 40,000, like just throw it at the house and just drive off. Like, if you want to be
Truly.
that fair about it, you don't have to go and talk to the guy. He obviously don't want to talk to you.
Right.
Just put the money in the bag and like throw it through the window and run it out. Like, he never find you again. This was 1996. It's a lot easier to hide.
Oh,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
he
That's
also
so
had his
true.
jaw shot half the bit, so he was in a bad spot.
He's in a
Yeah.
bad mood. And it just goes to show once again how idiotic these crimes are and these people who are doing this crime. Like he buried cash in snow.
Yeah.
Like the water, it's going to ruin the money. Like it doesn't make any sense once it melts. And he also just stuck one little red shovel in
Right.
it to be like, okay, I'm gonna remember where this is
Yeah.
in a vast landscape of nothing. And you're like, you're never gonna find that money again.
Yeah, because
Right.
it's still snowing. That's gonna be covered up by the morning. Because it's gonna the
Exactly.
snow is just gonna
Yeah.
knock it down and snow over it.
No
Yeah.
coordinates, no nothing.
It's really interesting, right? Well, why don't you go ahead and finish up, because I think my point is really after the whole thing's wrapped up.
So he goes back and he's cussing out the partner. The partner has killed the wife they kidnapped because she just kept yapping and freaking out. Then he kills Steve Buscemi and he's putting him in the wood chipper when Marge shows up. She shows up. He tries to run. She shoots him. So all the criminals are dead. Half the people involved are dead. Then William H. Macy gets arrested in a hotel when he was trying to flee because she came back to ask him another
Mhm.
question and he like flee the interview. She's pregnant. She can't chase him. They find him and track him to a hotel. They knock on the door. He tries to jump out the window. They find him. They arrest him. So he also has a son. So he has one son with a dead parent. He's gonna find out his other parent tried to have his mom kidnapped for money from his grandfather, who's now dead. The two criminals are dead. It's
Yeah.
just what a mess, man. I ended up feeling so bad for what this. I think every time I watch it, I feel so bad for what the kid would have to go through next.
Mm.
You know,
Yeah.
what the rest of his life would be after this. Man, I'm sure he moves in with an aunt or something, but it's just like heavy trauma for like a sensitive 11-year-old kid or whatever he is.
Yeah.
That's for sure. I never even really considered all that. Um, and I think one of like I don't enjoy this movie, and one of the reasons I don't enjoy it is because, and I don't mean because of its quality. I think it's a fine film, and I mean fine in like the superb sense, not the like mid sense, right?
Mhm.
Um,
They're finally
but
done, finally
yeah,
tuned.
finely crafted,
Mhm.
right? It's a
Yes,
That
fine
doesn't
finely
film.
mean it
crafted.
makes you feel like it's something you wanna.
Yeah, but I do not enjoy it. I never have because it is bleak, and I never even considered like the kid piece of it. But that's like even bleaker.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that I wanted you to at least get to the wood chipper part to bring up is like I never really paid attention to it before, but like I get the sense that this time that Georg or whatever his name was, Peter
Yeah.
Stormare's character, like when he shoots that cop, I think at that point he knows he's killing everybody. And
Mm.
Mhm.
like he's walking away from this no matter what. And that's going to include killing this other guy. And like the idea that Steve
Yeah.
Buscemi somehow has still some idea that even though they don't like each other, that somehow they're partners and that's supposed to mean something. I've got to honor
Mhm.
this. And yeah, you're right. He had $1 million in his hand. He should have skipped it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I feel like there's a dispute. He starts cussing out the Peter Stormare's character, and then Peter Stormare's character kills him. I felt like he was gonna kill him no matter what. Like this
Yeah.
guy,
Yeah.
that guy
Yeah.
wasn't right.
He was
Yeah.
waiting for a payout for sure. Like he still wanted to get the money, and then it was just like at that point, whoever's around is
It's
done.
over. Yep.
Already killed 3 people. Like
Hmm.
take this
He,
money and go.
he would have killed the wife too. I think they were going to kill everybody. You're right. That's a good point.
They're all witnesses at that point, right? So like, yeah,
Hmm.
he's done for, and especially the way that Steve Buscemi's character is like out there talking about what they do.
Oh my
Like
God.
he's just not serious about
Yeah.
He's not
about
serious.
this crime life in the way that the other dude is.
Yeah, she
No.
interviews like the barkeep, and the barkeep's like, the fella was here, and he said the last person that talked to him like that, he killed him, and it was like, well,
Yeah.
that's not how to be like a good criminal, man.
Yeah.
So the question I have for this movie is: so this movie was nominated for 7 Academy Awards.
Wow.
Mhm.
It won Best Actress, won Best Original Screenplay. But like, what is the point of this movie? I think there's some discussion online about movies, and it's like if a scene doesn't have a point, I think kids are just learning like basic storytelling, like in school and stuff. So they're like, if it doesn't move the plot forward, and a lot of this is related to like sex scenes and stuff, which can be awkward, especially watching a
Yeah.
family movie with your parents or something. But what is the actual point of this movie? Like, speaking of a minority pitching, you couldn't pitch this movie without being like, the third act would have to be different, and it'd have to be like, well, what she learns in her journey as a pregnant mom, and they'd have to make her like she wasn't like questioning her pregnancy at the beginning, or it would just have to be like some more clear arc. I
Yeah.
think for this movie to pass through, or for anybody besides the Coen brothers to do this movie. If it
Yeah.
doesn't have like a point or like a story, even at the end, you're just kind of like, well, it is. At least it ends with her and her husband, and that's like kind of a nice note. But like you
I
said,
Yeah.
think,
that's bleak for bleakness sake.
yeah, I think it is. I think ultimately it's like a philosophical like
Mhm.
rumination, right? Like it's funny you were talking about the Midwest and not there being anything around, and I think about this movie, right? And she at the end she's talking to the one dude. He doesn't die. The European Peter Stormare's character. She
He
Mhm.
gets
she
arrested.
she
He
apprehends
gets
him, and
shot but arrested. Yeah, you're right.
because there's that scene where she's like asking him like, "Don't you know that there's more important things in life than money?" And like she's not even really talking to him, she's talking to herself. And I think ultimately is that what
Mhm.
it's about. It really is about like kind of that old quote. I don't know who said it, but I looked into the abyss and the abyss looked back. Right? It's like
Mhm.
you look into the nothingness of this Midwest town, you look into the darkness of these crimes, and like the only thing you're going to get out of it is what you went into it with. So she's a good person, she came out good. All these
Mhm.
other people, they weren't. Like even in that first like scene with Jerry, William H. Macy's character, right, with the guy that he's running the true guard game
True
on,
coat. Yeah.
Mhm.
true coat
Mhm.
game on. Like he tells him, he's like, "You're a liar." Like,
Right.
you
Yeah.
know what I mean? And like he just puts his head down and waits for that guy to finally settle down and pull out his checkbook, but he has no answer to that, right?
Yeah. Right.
And so it is interesting in that way. But yeah, I think it's like ultimately like just like kind of a philosophical like pondering more
Yeah.
than anything else.
Yeah. On that, I 100% agree. I think um I get the bleakness that you're talking about. Like, oh man, you leave just going, oh man, Marge is still in the Midwest, like she's gonna raise a kid there and everything. Uh it feels like a similar message to a lot of the Coen brothers movies, where this feels like a spiritual like prequel, if not yeah, prequel to um No Country for Old Men, where you
Sure.
go, oh, okay. You leave going like, just like Marge says, for what? Like
Right.
all of this stuff for what? For
Yeah.
money? And everyone who's bad gets some kind of punishment, but the good don't get anything either. It's just
Right.
weird.
They get to continue normalcy. They get to continue. They get to come
Yes.
back to their status quo, and that's the reward for the
Right.
life you've
Right.
already established. I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, what a reward. What a reward.
As we're talking about it, as we're talking about it, it makes me think like there's something here about the commonality of heroism. And I don't, and I mean that in
Mhm.
two ways, like commonality and kind of like it's like kind of like just not much there, right? At the end they get to go back to the same life that they already had, and it doesn't look like much of a life to us, the audience, anyways, right? But also thinking about like the fact that Frances McDormand's character is just doing her job, right? Like
Right.
her heroism is in just the commonality of doing her job well, just doing it, just going and doing the job. And
Yeah.
so there is something like they're like juxtaposing like heroism as being just really like a kind of a not super heroic thing, a very common thing, but that the evil or whatever is really gruesome.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it perfectly fits into her husband's little side story, where it ends with them in bed, and the husband from the beginning of the movie was trying to submit to get his like was it his drawings or paintings
I think a painting, yeah.
Yeah. Some drawings to be on stamps.
to be on stamps, and he's talking about how much competition there'll be, it's going to be hard, whatever, whatever. And then by the end, he kind of succeeds in getting the 3 cent stamp.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, that's the win, right?
Right.
Yeah, she's like, that's the good one. That's the one everybody uses when they change the price.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You're like,
Like
okay.
the choice to see good, even in the
Mm-hmm.
face of everything else, you know?
Mm-hmm.
LSU. Say that
Yeah.
again.
But yeah, it's not necessarily like a rollicking plot that's going to drive you forward or anything like that. It's
Right. Right. Yeah, that's dope. The choice to see good, what you said there. It's like, yes, because it's very easy to see the opposite. It's very easy to act on the opposite. But the choice to see good is the harder choice.
Yeah.
wow, that is going to make me enjoy this movie. Like I'm going to have to choose to see the good in it.
You just
Can't be a
gotta.
hypocrite now, man.
Now it's your favorite movie. You got to keep watching it.
Ah, dang it.
Finally unlocked the key to Fargo.
Right.
Um,
Fargo. Yeah. And I'm very surprised that this movie, I know it got a TV show afterwards, but I'm surprised for the amount of success this movie had that there was no sequel. Like, I'm
yeah,
surprised.
it definitely seems like the sequel is with the son now. It's like he's an adult and whatever.
Yeah,
You just imagine something for him. I don't know what it would be. I don't.
right.
Hadn't thought that far ahead, but that seems
Is
like.
it? He's a hard-boiled, take no prisoners detective in Minneapolis, the mean
Mhm.
streets of Minneapolis, which
Yes.
He's like a
they can be
he's like a
pretty mean. I'm not making fun of Minneapolis.
or he's like a weirdo and he like gets in a case with the Marge again. He's like,
Mhm.
"Oh, Marge, you might not remember me, eh? But
Mhm, mhm,
20
mhm.
years ago, my father
Yeah.
tried to kill my mother, basically, and you solved the crime."
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Drag Marge out of retirement to solve some kind
Right.
of new thing.
One
She's like, "Oh,
last
I remember
ride.
that case, don't you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Remember that case? That
Oh,
was a doozy."
It would be incredible to see what they would. I mean, obviously, the Coen's not really known for revisiting their projects with sequels, but it would be interesting to see because, like I said, I have seen the TV show and I enjoy the TV show. I think they do a lot of really good things with it, and
Yeah, I saw him in a couple seasons, first season
it's
at least.
bleak,
Yeah,
but it's not as bleak. Like there's a lot. I think there's a little bit more fun happening in that than maybe
in that
the
movie.
movie.
Yeah,
oh,
But
cool.
but yeah, I would be interested to see what some like a film sequel to this starring Frances McDormand now would look like.
Oh, yeah. Would it just be, I mean, I haven't seen Nomadland, but is it just Nomadland?
Possibly Marge got let
no, she
go
was
when
like she was like a unhoused person in Nomadland. She was
Okay,
like,
that'd be
yeah, she was. It was a different story.
that'd be a rough end for Marge. You'd be like,
I
how
don't
did
think
she
she
get
was as
here?
light as Marge. Marge was kind of Midwest light, like, oh, it'll be okay. I think
Hmm.
Nomadland, she was like, yeah, girl, America, like, this economy is,
Right.
which she wasn't wrong. It was good.
she was right on time, yeah, for sure.
She was right on. He's ahead of the game. Let's see if you guys got anything else. You want to go to casting? Wrap it up.
I mean, I guess like yeah, let's ask, like what do you think this says culturally? I mean, that's kind of what we're here and we talk about. So like
Hmm.
as far as like it might be a what whites is this for sort of question or
Yeah.
whatever,
Oh,
but like
yeah.
what do you think are some of maybe those narrative cultural messages that get put in this story? What stood out to you?
To me, the message isn't really even from the movie. It's from the fact that it exists. And it says that, like, we want a variety of stories as long as they come from straight white males. So if you have, like, an oddball story, a story that kind of plays with themes, that's kind of bleak, and, you kind of have a different personality, like, there's space for you to make a movie that's not doesn't really have a ton of commercial value, like for what whites, like I don't know that this is made for any kind of like, this is made for the Coen brothers. You know what I mean?
Mm.
So if you fancy yourself a person like them who kind of rejects popular art and who kind of wants to be off the beaten path, I think there's a certain personality type. And that can mean a lot of things, but there's specifically like a cinephile who's like
Yeah.
likes a certain kind of foreign movie that they think is superior, and kind of, I even think this movie kind of is like a superior mindset. Somebody who thinks they're so super smart and so like superior in how they view and approach things, and that's the kind of person I think who really loves this film and who it appealed to, and even in the Academy that voted for it were like, oh, this makes us feel like smarter than everyone because it doesn't have a happy ending and it's not conventional. And the laughs are, you have to really be paying attention to get to the laughs. It's like a test of intellectuality. I
Mm.
think this kind of
Mm-hmm.
film presents itself as.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's interesting. Uh, a testament. Yeah, I agree with the like testament to the intellectuality of it. I think this movie
Like, I don't know
can
that it
be.
is that, but I think that's how people feel when they were watching it. Like, oh, yeah, I can't
Yeah.
show this one to everybody. It's a little deeper. People won't really get it. Only
Mm-hmm.
me and you, only our kind of get it. You get it, but everybody doesn't get it.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's an easy way for like the coasts to be like, oh, I can look at this movie and understand the message of it all and the big thing of they're using these regular people in this weird regular place. And
Yeah.
I think it's easy for that.
Yeah.
I also feel like it's the message, pulling the message from it is this idea of like greed and uh, uncontrolled capitalism can be placed anywhere. This
Sure.
movie could have easily been set on Wall Street with rich people, like coming after each other's money. But
Sure.
I mean, it's kind of a version of Man on Fire,
mhm.
Denzel movie where they kidnap the girl that
Mhm.
he's security for, basically.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Dakota
Like,
Fanning.
and you
Mhm.
find out that Mark Anthony, the dad, kind of was a part of it or something. I can't remember the whole plot of that movie,
Oh yeah, it
but
was.
Right.
that's similar to this plot.
That
Like, and
Very
so people
similar.
like kidnappings happen in South America or Mexico. It's like, well, this movie was saying
Hmm.
it happened in Minnesota too.
Exactly. Exactly. It's
I also think this is one of those linchpin movies where they go, if you like cinema, you like Fargo, and then people can be like Bernard was saying, and I,
yeah.
I mean, I more agree with Bernard. It's like, I'm not saying this movie is bad, but not it doesn't mean I have to like it. And there's a difference between liking something and it being good and disliking something and whether it's bad or not.
Right.
But this is a movie where I think a lot of those so-called cinephiles are like, if you don't like it, I mean, you don't really like movies. This is a movie. It's like, well, but it doesn't speak to me, and there's no black, obviously no black, no even minority concerns in it. That's not
Hmm.
the only reason it doesn't speak to me, but I wouldn't say I love Fargo either, but recognize a lot of the quality of the movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, definitely. And I would agree with that. I kind of get that same sense as what you were saying, Amon, about I get a very kind of coastal, like, and maybe coastal is a thing. I think but elite sort of like look at the rubes back
Hmm.
in the Midwest, and I think that they're trying to take it, that's a very old storytelling type to like take kind of like the bumpkin detective and tell a straight story with it, you know what I mean? But I definitely kind of feel like it's that, and certainly the the cinephile, right? Like if you're talking to anybody who is a lover of cinema, they're going to talk about the Coen brothers, and it's not going to be too long before they probably get to Fargo.
Yeah.
um
Hmm. Hmm.
and yeah, I'll just say this. I mean, everybody's allowed to interact with how they interact, and I certainly enjoy certain things and don't understand how other people don't enjoy them. But if you're the type who's like, if you don't like this movie or certain other things, you're not. Oh, you don't like movies. So sorry, I
Yeah.
guess I don't. Because
Yeah. I guess I don't, bro. I didn't realize. Is there a prize if I, we find
right.
so many ways to like judge each other. It's really been what I've been thinking about last few years, really. But using media to like so much to judge each other, even all these like, what's your favorite conversations? It's like you're just looking for a way to like
Hmm.
cast an aspersion on me. But if we grew, we're like, oh yeah, but then sometimes I find agreeing more oppressive than disagreeing. Because then people are like,
Hmm.
oh yeah, you agree, let's hang out. Like we're not friends because we like the same.
Mhm.
I'd be like, no, I don't. It doesn't mean I want to hang out. It just means I also happen to like this thing
Yeah.
that you like.
I'm also one of the 3 billion people on this planet who enjoyed
Yeah,
that thing.
it's wildly popular. You can find it is not the. It's really just me. I was just you know trying
No,
to be
no,
left
no.
alone. It's not about anybody else. But
No, it's just us. It's
oh, you
just
like it?
us.
But then sometimes it's like you like something and they like something, and then they get into specifics, and you're like, that's not what I liked about it. Now we're getting off the rails. We got too deep, and I don't like any of the things about it you like.
It's like every Tarantino sort of like conversation that I have. Like I like a couple movies. You mention one, and then suddenly you're in the Tarantino fans like
Yeah.
whole world about they're telling you about the 10 movie thing, and like you're like,
So
oh
Like
no.
I didn't. That's not how I define myself. And they're like, that is how I define myself.
and
immediately fighting.
and I only make fun of Tarantino fans because it's a immediately identifiable fandom.
So let's
Yeah,
cast. Let's cast.
let's do it.
Boom, 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 boom. Casting, casting. Yeah,
Oh my
it's the
goodness.
black casting.
Oh my god, I wish that was the real song.
Oh
I
yeah, we
gotta
gotta.
cut that out and put it in every
Yeah,
episode.
just make that the real song.
It's the black casting. Okay, Fargo. Let's just start at the top because there's really only maybe 4 or 5 worth
Yeah, I only got
mentioning.
4.
Yeah.
Oh, also just a quick shout out to the guy that she met from her high school, the
Oh
Asian,
my God,
her
yeah.
Asian former classmate who was apparently mentally stressed, but who came in and for 3 minutes of the movie it was pretty memorable
Yeah,
in
Truly.
for
a
sure.
very strange role.
Very strange role and very memorable. But also, I did wonder about that. I didn't remember that he was like apparently mentally stressed and his story wasn't real. And I was like, what is that saying? Like, but
Yeah,
anyways, shout out
Mhm.
to the actor who definitely like they gave him that little scene and he ate.
Oh
I,
yeah, he took off.
I think it's
Like
100%. When the mom was saying something about loneliness and human connection, like this guy was struggling with that
true.
on multiple levels. But interesting, now that I looked him up, Steve Park. Speaking of like specific, he was also in Spike Lee movie, Do the Right Thing, which we
Ooh.
mentioned. He's been in a couple Coen Brothers movies. He's been in a couple Wes Anderson movies. He is
Whoa.
a go-to guy
Oh,
if you're like a really specific director.
Wow.
Yeah,
wow, good for him.
Good for him.
very. And he's been in oh wait, he was in a
There's a big
movie.
one. Are you seeing the
He was
big
also in
one?
Snowpiercer. Oh,
Whoa.
Snowpiercer, the TV show. But even that,
Gotcha. Still
Yeah.
Bong Joon-ho is a very specific
super.
director too, who's created his own like language. So if you have your own like film language, you're allowed to do that as a filmmaker. Get Steve Parker in your film. He is a
Right.
necessary. He's like a rite of passage actor.
He's a
Well,
necessary ingredient for sure.
get ready to have your mind blown. It all connects. He was a cast member of In Living Color.
Park was a cast member on In Living Color. I see that now.
91 to 92.
Wow. Wow.
My boy has been a
I
part
didn't
of
even
all
remember
great
that.
cinema history.
Unbelievable! What a champion!
I didn't
He
even.
does it all.
Wow.
Wow.
It's
Okay.
Amazing.
Wow. Just truly wow. Who do you have for start? Let's start right with Francis McDormand, the main
Mhm.
character, who we don't see for 20 minutes of the movie, but still the main character of the movie.
Yeah, yeah. I can. I'll start with Francis McDormand. I was like, all right, we need I'll just say it. We need Octavia Spencer.
That's a good one.
Valid.
Put her in there. She could be nice and lovable and interesting. I just want interesting actors.
Who you got?
Regina King.
Oh yeah. Yeah, come on. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Let's go. I went with Shanola Hampton,
Mm.
who was in Shameless and who now leads a show called Found, I think on ABC.
Okay.
Yeah, TV series called Found is brand new. It just aired.
Mm.
But she was in Shameless for 10 seasons. Kind of lesser known, but she's been in the game for a long time. Shanola Hampton.
Oh yeah, that's
Ooh.
so cool.
Uh, William H. Macy character. This is maybe a tough one.
Yeah, this was a hard one. Jerry, which you think that they named Jerry from the
Rick
bumbling
and Morty?
dad character from Rick and Morty based on this Jerry?
Possibly.
It would make sense. It's a great homage.
Yeah.
They're the same type. For Jerry, I went with our boy, Oscar-winning Cuba Gooding Jr.
Wow.
Oh wow. Cuba. Cuba
Wow.
back in it.
Yeah.
Back, put it back in there.
That's good.
Wow.
That'd be interesting. That'd be real interesting.
Yeah.
William H. Macy, Martin Lawrence.
Ah, we're making a good comedy here. That's great. That's a
I
great
feel
choice.
like-
So, this movie really highlights like how white people get to like 45 and stay 45 for like on a visual level for like 40 years. And then they get really old really quick, Because like William H. Macy could have been 25 or 45 or 55 in this movie,
Right.
you know?
Mm-hmm.
For sure. He definitely
I
looked
would,
that way for a long time.
yeah. He still, I mean, even through Shameless, he just, had more of a scruff, but he was born in 1950, so he was,
Yeah, he's 73. I saw that.
yeah.
It's crazy.
Wow.
I went with Tommy Davidson.
Oh,
Also from A Living Color. Hey, him
Right.
reunited,
make it happen. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm keeping Stephen Park in my movie now.
Yeah, you definitely got to.
No, of course, of course.
This is an interesting one. Steve Buscemi character.
Yeah, the Buscemi character was hard to cast because there is no Buscemi.
There's definitely not a black Buscemi now.
No, that's a shame. So I went with like a comedian. I went with Jermaine Fowler.
Nice.
Cast him before.
Yeah, and he was
Famous.
just in The Blackening. He was real funny in that. It's good.
Mm-hmm. He's blackening. I can see him talking a lot and getting on the next person's nerves.
So I went a little bit older, but I was just trying to find somebody who would have even a little bit of that Buscemi vibe. So I went Spike Lee.
Whoa, Spike Lee.
Like just acting and just an acting.
Just acting. Yeah, just acting.
Let's
Man,
go.
that's cool. I'm going with Orlando Jones. Most recently in Swagger, the teacher from Drumline,
For sure.
Of course.
formerly of Mad TV, and I think Mountain Dew commercials, maybe one of them.
That 7 Up yours.
Back in the day.
Yeah, that's right. Wow.
Legend Orlando Jones and American Gods. He was in. He had a big role in that. So yeah, Orlando
Definitely.
Jones.
Great.
What about the other Peter Stromae's character, the other criminal, the Norwegian kind of criminal?
Yeah. So for this, I was like, man, I got to think of like a silent killer, somebody who could keep it in and then let loose.
Yeah.
So for this, you got to get the cleats on, Aaron. I cast you, Aaron Covington. Pop in, bro.
Reluctantly, but I'll do it.
That's what that character needs. It's reluctant.
Yeah. Reluctance. I was really surprised that this one wasn't picked, but Coleman Domingo.
Ooh. Yeah.
In fact, the more you kept building up to it, I was like, oh, he really is going to go Coleman Domingo.
Yeah. No, that's a good choice.
I went with 50 Cent. 50 Cent.
50 Cent. Wow.
Mhm.
That's interesting.
Yeah. I really want to see these versions.
For sure.
AI, make it happen.
Right.
Show me a
Allen
photo.
Iverson, make it happen now.
Basketball whiz. You still have the magic. Did you
NBA
do any
legend.
other significant castings?
I only did. He's not a significant character. I think he's a significant character, but doesn't have a lot of screen time. I just cast Marge's husband,
Oh,
and I went with Courtney B. Vance.
I like
great.
Cedric the Entertainer for that.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good one.
Yeah, that is good. That's good. You
Also,
know what?
shout out to this movie for like random representation with the Proudfoot character
Yeah, yeah.
played by Steve Reeves. Native
That's
American.
the indigenous
Yeah,
character.
yeah.
Yeah.
He's from the Blackfeet nation.
Mm,
It says here,
okay.
born in Montana, still acting, I think.
Honestly, man, he might be the only guy who came out not really scarred by this whole escapade. You know what I mean? He might
Yeah,
end
who
up
was like involved and didn't have like a bad
right,
result.
Yeah.
and he kicked the ass of Steve Buscemi, so he got one off. You know,
And randomly kicked the black dude's ass during that fight.
Oh
He
yeah,
just came to see what was going on and he ended up getting jacked up. Only one of
Yeah.
3 black people in all of the Coen brothers catalog. There's Marlon Wayans and Lady Killers. This guy, probably somebody else that got killed in some movie.
Right.
The Coen brothers do not
No.
do, do not do much with non-white people. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
They're mostly straight males, but they do have straight white females.
Yes, their
Almost,
wives.
almost no. It's like less than 1% of all of their cast and all of their movies is like black specifically is like not so it's like non-existent. So
That's
that's a
interesting
thing.
because like it's almost so significant that one of like in Oh Brother Where Art Thou, like I don't know if it's the Muses or the Fates or whatever, are like a number of black women who are like
Right.
in white baptismal dresses in the river in that movie, and they like kind of sing this. There's the sirens, I think is what they are. But anyways, like they have so few black people that is like almost used as a plot point of significance for them in that movie.
Yeah.
Like those characters stand out because they are black.
Joe Cohen did do the tragedy of Macbeth that starred Denzel, so I got we got to shout.
That's
out.
true.
Okay.
That's true.
right.
I forgot about
Because
that.
Frances McDormand was Lady Macbeth.
She was later, yeah. That was
Yeah.
a good rendition of that. Great one, maybe.
They tried to make up for all their many years of not casting any black people.
Nobody. If we do one Denzel, I think
One.
we're good.
Put him as the lead. Nobody's gonna ask questions now.
If we do one Denzel, especially if he wins an Oscar for it, which he didn't. Oh my God, we won't get into that. But if we do a Denzel, he gets nominated. I think we're forgiven, like historically. Actually, that was only Joel, so maybe he was just like, I've been meaning to work with some black people. Ethan does not want that, but I said, I got to.
You don't know
One time before I die, I was like, I gotta have a strong black lead. Gotta have the man himself.
You don't understand the fight I had to go through to get Javier Bardem. Ethan would not allow it.
My family was like, don't do it. I said, but it's Denzel. I had to go against the family to do this.
Man, Ethan Cohen, card carrying racist.
He wears a t-shirt like, am I invited to the cookout? Cookout question mark. Like, no, we're not doing that anymore. But we thank you on behalf of Denzel. That's all you get. Poking fun at racism. This is how we survive.
You can do. That's all you can do.
Yeah, Fargo, classic film. Glad to talk about it. Not so much just to watch it, but to watch it and then talk about it. Definitely, like shed some new light on it. and it's one, if you haven't seen it, it is worth seeing. You know, you don't
Yeah.
have to love it, but it's worth seeing. Or also The Big Lebowski, which we've done here. We did The Big Lebowski early on, and
Hmm.
No Country, I think, is a good one. A Serious Man, also, like Llewyn Davis, is solid. So yeah, get familiar with some Coen Brothers, and that's all I got. That's all I got. You guys got anything?
No, I'm good.
No, no, that's it. It's just check it out if you want. And if you want to fund our version of the movie, please do hit us up.
Yeah, follow us on social media. See them on an improv shows. Watch the programs we work on. Like, subscribe, share. Shout out to the Colorado football
Yeah.
team,
Coach Prime, keep
Mom's
it going.
hometown team.
Coach Prime.
Yep. Don't put me
Coach
through one of those
Prime,
games again. It's not
really
good for
double
my
overtime
heart.
game last night. Yeah, we're still coming down off of that. So
Yeah.
thank you. Good afternoon, good evening, and good night. In case we don't see you.
All right. Bye.
Peace.
Bye.